In September 2006, a young couple named and Marcelo were returning from a weekend in the mountains. They were driving on a narrow dirt road. Suddenly, the main road was blocked due to an accident. They found an alternate path marked on an old map they found in the glove box of the rental car. They decided to take it. As they drove, the sun was setting, painting the sky a deep orange hue. Tall, twisted trees lined the road. Soon the GPS stopped working. Its red line just vanished into darkness. After a few minutes of driving, the car began to sputter and finally died. Marcelo pulled over and they got out. Nothing seemed wrong, but the engine refused to start. They had no cell signal and no other cars were in sight. As they walked, they came across an old, rusted and creaking gate. It had a barely legible wooden sign that read, Goulart Family. Since 1898, the house was massive, old and entirely made of dark wood. The windows were covered with thick, dirty curtains, but a dim light glowed behind them. Hesitated, but Marcelo, always practical, insisted they knock. They knocked to nothing. As they turned to leave, the door slowly creaked open on its own. A cold draft escaped from inside, like the house itself was breathing. Inside, everything was dusty but intact. Old furniture, crooked paintings, lit candles as if someone had just stepped out. They called out, but only their echoes replied. Then on the wall, a row of antique portraits caught their attention. Stepped closer and paled. One of the paintings showed a couple that looked exactly like them. Same faces, same clothes. Marcelo laughed, calling it coincidence. Didn't think it was funny. They decided to spend the night there. The couch was comfortable and the fireplace still had wood. But in the middle of the night, woke up to whispering sounds upstairs. Marcelo heard them too. They cautiously climbed the stairs, each step creaking beneath their feet. The whispers grew louder as they approached a room at the end of the hall. When they opened the door, they found a massive mirror, and then they saw the man turned to one was there. But in the reflection, he remained tall, dressed in an old-fashioned suit, his face completely blank. Marcelo tried to smash the mirror with a chair, but it didn't even crack. Instead, the image became clearer, and a man began to move toward them in the reflection. Panicking, they fled the room. But the house had changed. The hallways multiplied, staircases duplicated, and doors led back to the same room. It was a living maze. In one room, they found the portraits again. Now every pair of eyes followed them, and one frame showed S face with black, empty eyes. Marcelo began repeating strange phrases as if under a trance. His eyes turned white and he collapsed, shaking. She tried to drag him, but he started to laugh a deep, inhuman laugh. Behind her, doors slammed shut on their own. A woman's voice softly whispered her name. Come, Julia, you're already one of us. In a last burst of strength, she escaped the house, dragging Marcelo. Outside the road was dark, and the car worked perfectly as if nothing had happened. They drove off without looking back. When they reached town, Marcelo woke up with no memory of anything. They considered reporting it, but knew no one would believe them. A few weeks later, still shaken, looked up information about the Goulart family. She discovered they had all mysteriously vanished in 1901, and the house had been condemned and supposedly demolished. But what made her blood run cold was the last line of the article. The only surviving image shows a mysterious couple visiting the house before the fire. Their faces eerily resemble a pair recently seen in the area. At the bottom of the article's photo scan, they were there, Marcelo and Julio, standing on the house's porch, smiling. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and join us next time for more terrifying tales. Every town has a legend. In the small village of São Miguel das Pedras, nestled deep in the mountains and surrounded by an ancient, dense forest, the legend was about a woodsman with hollow eyes. They said he lived deep in the woods and only appeared on moonless nights. No one had ever seen his face, only a silhouette, a tall, thin figure cloaked in darkness, moving silently through the trees. And then there were his eyes, or the lack of them, for they said he had none, just gaping voids where eyes should be, glowing faintly in the dark like embers in a dying fire. Now some dismissed it as an old wives' tale, just a story to scare children and keep them from wandering into the dangerous forest. But others claimed it was real, that the woodsman with hollow eyes was very real and best avoided. Enter Lucas, a skeptical journalist who specialized in debunking myths. He saw the legend as the perfect opportunity for his next big article, and that would bring him fame and fortune. So he packed a camera, a flashlight, and a recorder and set out for the village, determined to prove once and for all that the woodsman was nothing but rural superstition. But the villagers weren't exactly welcoming. An old woman at the inn refused to speak his name, and a young boy warned him, "If you hear him knocking, don't open your eyes." Lucas laughed, but the warning stuck with him. These people were clearly deluded, and he was going to prove it. That night he followed a barely discernible trail into the forest and set up camp near the place where the woodsman supposedly appeared. But as the night wore on, he began to feel a sense of unease. The forest was unnaturally silent. No crickets chirped, no leaves rustled in the wind. It was as if all sound had been sucked out of the woods. Then came the knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks that echoed through the stillness. Lucas turned quickly with his flashlight, but saw no one. The knocks came again, this time from the trees ahead. He called out, but there was no reply, only silence. Then he heard a whisper, a raspy voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You see now, a chill ran down Lucas's spine. He picked up his camera and started filming. A shadow flickered between the trees, tall and thin, yet somehow unnatural. He ran after it, his heart pounding in his chest. As he burst into a clearing, he stopped. There in the center, illuminated by a shaft of moonlight, stood the woodsman, or what he assumed was the woodsman. It was a humanoid figure, tall and gaunt, with long, gnarled fingers and a wide mouth that seemed too big for its face. But the most disturbing thing about it was not its appearance, but the absence of its eyes. Where eyes should have been, there was only blackness, a bottomless void that seemed to stare back at him. Lucas froze, his blood turning to ice. The creature didn't move, yet he could have sworn it was staring at him. He blinked, and the creature vanished. Terrified, Lucas fled, stumbling back to the village. But when he looked back, the woodsman was there, standing in the road, his eyes fixed on Lucas, and then he started to walk, slowly at first, then faster, his long fingers twitching. Lucas ran, crashing through the underbrush, desperate to escape the clutches of the woodsman. But the trees seemed to close in around him, blocking his path, and as the forest grew darker, he realized with a growing sense of dread that he was no longer in the real world. He was trapped,